Welcome to JW Broadcasting. This month we focus on how we can refine ourselves as Christians by imitating Jehovah's holiness. Do you sometimes say things you later regret? Something unkind, perhaps critical of others? We'll learn from this dramatization how to adjust not only what we say, but also how we think. If you're a young person, do you ever feel you're in a fight? A fight to please Jehovah? A fight to be joyful despite opposition? You'll enjoy our new music video. Some of Jehovah's people have suffered disappointing spiritual setbacks. Jehovah lovingly wants people to return to Him. We'll see how He helped this man turn his life around. All of this and more on JW Broadcasting for October 2019. When I say the words holy and holiness, what comes to your mind? Many think of words like clean and pure. But let's change the question a little. Who comes to your mind? Likely you think of Jehovah. You might also picture Jesus Christ and the holy angels. But do you think of imperfect humans? Can humans be described as holy? Yes. We know this because humans were created in God's image. Just as we can reflect godly qualities such as love, kindness, and self-control, we can reflect holiness. How seriously should we take holiness? It's no small matter. Today, the world around us is increasing in badness. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 13 warns that wicked men would advance from bad to worse. Undoubtedly, before the end, Satan's efforts to promote wickedness will intensify. So we must intensify our efforts to be holy and reject all badness. Who do you think are Satan's primary targets? We are. He and the demons are like a pack of hungry lions looking to devour us. Being a publisher of the good news is a privilege that Satan seeks to attack. Are you a parent with children? Do you think Satan wants you to become unclean? Yes. He knows that devouring a family head could weaken an entire family. In the congregation, Satan would love to devour you, dear pioneers, ministerial servants, and elders. Are you in the circuit work, a missionary, a Bethelite? What a sacred privilege. But remember, it also means that we have a big target on our back. Satan and the demons would love to penetrate our clean and holy position. Doing so could impact the kingdom work or stumble others. So we can't be complacent. We must intensify our efforts to reject all badness. Thus, holiness is a vital topic. To that end, the theme for this month's program is perfecting holiness in God's fear. It's based on 2 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 1. To begin, we need to better understand the source of holiness, Jehovah God. As we read the Bible, we see that holiness is an important quality that Jehovah wants us to know about Him. The Bible contains many verses that associate God's name with the words holy and holiness. Please open your copy of the Bible to one example at Isaiah chapter 6. We'll start at Isaiah chapter 6 and verse 1. Now, imagine that you're the prophet Isaiah who received a divine vision. What would you have seen and heard? Let's read verses 1 to 3. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw Jehovah sitting on a lofty and elevated throne, and the skirts of his robe filled the temple. Seraphs were standing above him. Each had 6 wings. Each covered his face with 2, and covered his feet with 2, and each of them would fly about with 2. And one called to the other, Holy, holy, holy is Jehovah of armies. The whole earth is filled with his glory. Isaiah was likely filled with awe. Verse 2 indicates that he saw seraphs, spirit creatures evidently of very high rank. What do we learn from their song? Their repeating the word holy 3 times teaches us that Jehovah is holy to the superlative degree. No one else is as holy as he is. But what exactly is holiness? What does it mean to be holy? Let's dig deeper. We can do so with a helpful tool found in the Revised New World Translation. If you don't have the Revised edition in your language, we'll share the key point in just a moment. In the Revised Printed Edition, the glossary is located several pages after Revelation and immediately after the Bible Words Index. The topics are arranged alphabetically, so please find the entry for holy, holiness. If you're using JW Library, here are 2 ways to get to the glossary. In the app, go to the Bible, then at the top of the screen, tap on the magnifying glass to start a search. Then type in the word holy. Soon you'll see an entry from the glossary. Tap on that. Another way is to go to Publications and then Books. From there you can open the glossary and find the entry for holy. Ready? Let's read it. A quality possessed inherently by Jehovah, a state of absolute moral purity and sacredness. When referring to humans, animals, things, places, time periods, and activities, the original Hebrew word conveys the thought of separateness, exclusiveness, or sanctification to the holy God, a state of being set aside for Jehovah's service. In the Christian Greek scriptures, the words rendered holy and holiness likewise denote separation to God. The words are also used to refer to purity in one's personal conduct. What did we learn? First, we're reminded that Jehovah is pure in the absolute sense. But what does it mean that holiness is a quality that he possesses inherently? Let's illustrate. Consider the words human and imperfect. Today, those 2 words naturally go together. Imperfection is within all of us and affects everything we do. Now consider another set of words that consistently go together. Jehovah and holy. Holiness permeates Jehovah. He doesn't have to perfect holiness like we do. Everything about him is inherently clean, pure, and upright. What a contrast Jehovah's holiness is to the world around us. Today, virtually everything about human society, alienated from God, is polluted in some way, either by inherited imperfection or by outright wickedness. But Jehovah is completely removed from sinfulness. He'll never be polluted by badness. He'll never turn corrupt, immoral, or abusive. Because he's absolutely holy, he's completely reliable. This means that Jehovah is the ideal Father. How encouraging and reassuring. Jehovah's holiness is beautiful. Think about the physical world. How do you feel about beautiful things? Are you drawn to them or repelled by them? For example, look at these landscapes. How do they make you feel? Would you like to spend time here? Can you see yourself walking here, filling your lungs with clean, fresh air? Or how about drinking from a river of pure, crystal clear water. How we yearn to live in such conditions, and we will. But have you ever wondered what it is about these images that's so appealing? Simply put, everything is pure and clean. On the other hand, if these same locations were filled with garbage, graffiti, and smog, would you still want to be there? Likely not. Pollution and filth are not attractive. What's the point? We're naturally drawn to beauty. Beauty is associated with things that are clean, pure, and bright. That's how Jehovah wants us to view His holiness. Meditating on this aspect of God's personality draws us closer to Him. And though He hates all sin, His Word confirms that He doesn't hate us. All of this stirs within us a desire to perfect holiness. Let's now open to 2 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 1, our theme scripture. Though Paul wrote this to one congregation, Jehovah preserved it for us. It says, "Therefore, since we have these promises, beloved ones, let us cleanse ourselves of every defilement of flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God." The concluding part of the verse serves as the basis for our theme. What does it mean to perfect something? According to one dictionary, to perfect means to bring to a state of supreme excellence, to rid of faults, to improve or refine. As an example, perhaps you enjoy a hobby like drawing, taking photographs, or playing an instrument. If an expert in that field told you that you should perfect your talent, what would he mean? First, he's confirming that you have some experience already. Second, he's telling you, you have what it takes to be even better in the future. I can see your potential. Of course, perfecting a hobby takes time. The same is true of our holiness. The book, Word Pictures in the New Testament, notes that the word perfecting at 2 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 1 means not a sudden attainment of complete holiness, but a continuous process. So Jehovah, the expert in holiness and our best friend, is appealing to us. In effect, he's saying, I see your potential. You have what it takes to make progress in holiness. Keep working to perfect it. Does such an appeal touch your heart? We could ask ourselves, is there an area in my life where I can refine my holiness? For example, consider the matter of physical cleanness. Chapter 8 of the book, How to Remain in God's Love, discusses the need to glorify Jehovah by keeping our body and clothing, our home and surroundings, and our place of worship clean. Being physically clean benefits us and those around us. More important, it honors our Holy Father. But our personal cleaning program must go below the surface. In our theme text, Jehovah urges us to cleanse ourselves of every defilement of flesh and spirit. This involves every aspect of our lives. For example, something we read in the Bible or that we hear at a meeting may warn us that our thoughts need further refinement. Perhaps we detect a tendency toward materialism, or we realize that our precious time is being consumed by social media, surfing the internet, or playing video games. In Ephesians 4:23 and 24, we're urged to continue to be made new in our dominant mental attitude and to put on the new personality. So our challenge might be a deeply ingrained negative personality trait. A sister named Christina admitted, "I often find myself looking enviously at others. I compare what they have with what I don't have." Well, these are just a few examples, and these may not be our weaknesses, but the lesson is clear. All of us need to keep examining ourselves. And, brothers and sisters, when we identify a personal weakness, what should we do? For illustration purposes, let's use the example of Christina and her battle with envy. A 3-step program to change our dominant mental attitude was published on page 11 of the June 2019 study edition of the Watchtower. What's the first thing Christina should do? Step 1. She needs to talk to Jehovah, admitting that she recognizes the need to change. If she prays regularly for Jehovah to put within her a new spirit, our holy God will help her. Step 2. She needs to meditate so as to examine herself in the mirror of God's Word. For example, she might think deeply about the fact that love is not jealous and does not look for its own interests. This would help Christina to hate envy. Step 3. She needs to assess her relationships and choose good association. Could it be that negative gossip, either in person or online, is shaping her thinking? If so, she'd be wise to choose better association. Yes, Jehovah's blessing upon Christina's personal efforts will enable her to perfect holiness. These 3 steps can help us do the same. Let's now review our key points. First, wickedness is going from bad to worse, so we need to intensify our efforts to be holy. Second, since Jehovah is the source of holiness, everything about him is clean, pure, and upright. This beautiful quality draws us to him and moves us to be holy. Third, and most important, Jehovah appeals to us to cleanse ourselves of every defilement of flesh and spirit. So may we accept Jehovah's help and work to perfect holiness in God's fear. Even as we strive to perfect holiness, we don't look down on people who have been molded by the world around us. In the following experience from Italy, notice how a group of young men who had a rough start in life were drawn to the truth, and what a courageous sister did to reach their hearts.
Our parents loved us, but they did it the wrong way. They would often turn violent, so we learned that way of life.
I remember that since I was young, I was afraid of coming home one day and not finding my parents together, because as far as I remember, they have always argued with each other.
So we grew up with those values and those ways of thinking that led us to become a group that was known and feared in the area because of our violent, immoral lifestyle devoted to drugs.
We had no rules.
We were people that you should stay away from.
It was one of those regular mornings when we were home alone, and it used to become our hideout, the place we would meet. We had skipped school and our parents didn't know. I was with Federico and Raffaele when 2 sisters, 2 of Jehovah's Witnesses, rang the doorbell. So we had them come in so we could make fun of them. And as a matter of fact, that's what we did.
I remember that Maria and the sister that was with her were 2 very sincere and genuine people. They showed courage as they brought us the truth.
I was surprised that they were so kind despite my tone of voice was mocking, and I really appreciated their kindness.
She didn't let anything stop her, not even the way we looked.
I was really touched by the conversation with Maria. But I thought I would never see her again. Who would ever come back to people like us? Maria didn't give up. She came back with an older pioneer brother who wasn't scared of us, and with courage started to preach. I really started to change my life and make progress. Immediately, I started to speak about what I was learning with all my friends. What surprised me was my mother's reaction. She wasn't happy at all. She reacted really violently. They thought that I was going mad, that I was being brainwashed. I remember they would do everything to remind me of the strong friendship that was between us. So they would put pressure on me emotionally. I had to make a choice. Although I did love them and was close to them, I made the drastic decision to tell them that from then on I would no longer be staying in their company.
This situation made me really intrigued. In fact, I ended up studying with Francesco.
His determination really made me think. It was obvious that the things he was telling us were actually real. It was the truth. And also the strength he took to go forward with this. His determination to leave his friends was surely what made all of us seriously interested in the message he was preaching.
I would blame it on the truth because it was taking my friend away from me, a friend with whom I used to do the things I liked. However, inside I knew, even though I told him he had gone mad, I knew inside that there must have been something powerful. Because he was so convinced, and we could all sense his conviction. So I realized that there was really something there.
To my surprise, one after the other, all of my friends started studying the Bible.
As I studied, I realized that it was the truth. It used to be hatred that always motivated my choices. Now I act according to love, and this makes me feel good.
I can now say that, thanks to Maria and Francesco, Jehovah tried to draw me to him. I believe it's been a miracle from Jehovah.
The truth helped me cultivate the qualities of peace and joy, the personality that has made it possible for me to have the family I never had.
The greatest satisfaction I have in life is to have a relationship with Jehovah.
When I see someone like we used to be, I feel motivated to speak to them. The patience that Maria showed motivates me to be patient.
Despite our reputation, Maria did not give up. She showed us that in Jehovah's eyes, no one is beyond recovery. No one.
Before they found the truth, those young men were, as they put it, people you should stay away from. Would you have hesitated to give a witness? Our sister Maria didn't. And did you notice what our brother did when he embraced the truth? He went to his friends and broke off his association. He knew he needed friends who shared his determination to serve God. So do we. We see the wonderful results. All of them are now brothers. They cleansed themselves. And what was the most meaningful transformation? Our brother said it. It used to be hatred that motivated my choices. Now it's love. Whether we're new in the truth or have served Jehovah for decades, we can perfect holiness and move forward as spiritual people. We'll see that in our next segment. Look for how our brothers applied good suggestions from the Watchtower.
The challenge of serving in a foreign country can sometimes be that because you've made that move and you've learnt a foreign language, you can feel like you've done enough.
I was brought up by a witness mother, so I studied the Bible since I was small. So I thought I had Bible knowledge to some extent.
My wife and I have enjoyed the traveling work for 18 years. As we get older, trials that we never experienced when we were young come up one after another.
After I got married and had children, I had a hard time explaining the backgrounds of some Bible characters or biblical history when I studied the Bible with my children. Then I realized that I did not have enough Bible knowledge.
And another challenge can be that you're dealing with a foreign culture in the territory, but you also have many different cultures in the congregation.
When I struggle to fulfill various responsibilities in a balanced way, things such as caring for aged parents and our own health issues can be a source of stress and cause tension between my wife and me.
The study article, Move Forward as a Spiritual Person, in February 2018, was a big help. The expressions, once we have identified areas for improvement, we need to take positive steps, and that it is a life and death matter, really touched my heart. I realized that I needed to scrutinize my life seriously and make improvements for my own future and that of my family.
The article had a quote from Brother Barr that said, "Many fail because they are not diligent enough to grow mighty." This made me think, am I mighty enough to overcome any challenges that might come up, difficulties with brothers and sisters, in a way that pleases Jehovah? To move ahead as a spiritual person, I realised I needed to get Jehovah's thinking on matters and really look at Bible principles, and that means letting go of my pride when it comes back, letting go of it again, and really making Jehovah's thoughts my own thoughts.
I have a bad tendency to try to do everything by myself and to not delegate things to others. I ask myself, what decision will please Jehovah? Make sure of the more important things. I felt the need to train younger brothers in the congregation so that I could delegate responsibilities to them.
The article encouraged us to look to Bible principles, and two that really helped me were Proverbs chapter 15 verse 28 and Philippians chapter 2 verse 4, because it helped me to think about what is in the person's best interest before I responded to them.
I took time when reading Bible accounts to meditate on how I would feel if I were one of those Bible characters. I can now explain things better at my children's study. I'm very happy to see my children truly enjoying Christian activities. My son started doing play meetings for fun. My daughter loves the ministry. She talks to people willingly, not because we as parents are telling her to do so. Compared to how it was when I was a child, things are totally different now. And that really makes me happy.
By applying this principle, I can lighten my load and reduce my stress level. In turn, that helps me to maintain joy, to strengthen our relationship as a couple, and I feel I've become more approachable to those in the congregation.
Having the mind of Christ has helped me in my assignment because it's helped me to form really close friendships with the brothers and sisters in my congregation, and that's brought me a lot of joy in my service. And also, when I don't know what to do, which often happens, I have Jehovah's principles to guide me, and that makes me feel safe and secure.
Family heads. Did you notice how Yusuke took to heart the suggestion to analyze his life and look for ways to improve? He realized that while he had some Bible knowledge, he needed to deepen it through study and meditation. That made him a more effective teacher for his children. Jane was doing fine work as a pioneer in a foreign land. Yet, ironically, she had difficulty with brothers and sisters from different cultures. Do we? What stood in her way? She said, I had to let go of my pride. Once she did, Jehovah's thoughts became her thoughts. Perhaps like Yutaka Kimura, you're dealing with changing life circumstances. What do we learn from his example? He delegated responsibilities and reordered his priorities. That took humility. The result? Reduced stress and increased joy. Often, honest self-examination reveals the root cause of something we need to adjust. We'll see that in the following dramatization.
I embarrassed my wife tonight. I knew when it happened. And I didn't want to talk about it. But I knew in my heart that Yumi was right. I had become unkind. There were lots of examples. I'd complained about the way one brother conducts meetings for field service. I was jealous of a ministerial servant who received new privileges. And I was pretty blunt about how frustrated I get with Yumi's parents. I thought I'd gotten rid of my old personality, but it still lurked inside of me. Some of my friends were okay with and even encouraged these bad qualities. The change was so gradual, I didn't even realize how far I'd fallen. What do you think I need to do to change?
How about we search for Good for Building Up from the online library?
Sounds good. Let's take a look. We considered Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, which says, "Let a rotten word not come out of your mouth, but only what is good for building up to impart what is beneficial to the hearers." I was struck by this powerful word picture. Rotten words are as disgusting as rotten food. I didn't want the things coming out of my mouth to disgust my wife or anyone else. But to change, I needed a plan. Now, I really try to think before I speak. And I have a goal to give someone real commendation at every meeting. I have a goal for my conversations too. I want to keep them wholesome, true, and kind. It's amazing how speaking kindly to others can make you feel so good inside. I shouldn't be surprised, because it's just another way of showing God's love.
I don't think I'll ever forget that image of the rotten fruit. But isn't that the point? No one wants their words and conversations to be like that. We want to perfect holiness with clean conversations. How do we keep our speech upbuilding and kind? Like our brother, we need to look within ourselves. What's causing us to say hurtful things? He discovered the old personality still lurking inside, and he realized some of his friends were actually encouraging his critical attitude. But he did more than analyze himself. He made a plan and set goals. As his thinking changed, so did his speech. That drew people to him, and he felt good inside. As that brother realized, sometimes, even without noticing it, we could move backward spiritually. We need to move forward, perfecting holiness. We'll next hear from a brother who took more than a step or two backward. Notice what helped him regain his relationship with Jehovah.
My first contact with witnesses was in my 20s. As my knowledge increased, I made drastic changes. I quit smoking, stopped swearing and using drugs. I also changed my violent behavior. I completely gave up martial arts, and then I was baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. It was an amazing day that I will never forget. Shortly after my baptism, I became quite involved in my work at the theater. The environment there was very immoral, you know. Even after several loving warnings from the brothers in the congregation, advising me to look for another job, I chose not to follow their advice. I'd worked there for a long time, so I thought, I can handle it. But I was wrong. My conscience became dull, and I committed a serious sin against Jehovah. When I left the truth, several offers came my way. I became a manager at a nightclub that was open until 6 in the morning. It was a lot of parties and it was a lot of drugs. I also resumed martial arts. I came in contact with serious criminals and gradually became friends with the most influential person in the criminal underworld in Oslo. Eventually, I was in prison for my violent behavior. A Christian movement visited the prison where I was, and all of the inmates were invited to an event where there would be cake served. That sounded very interesting. I was tempted by a cake. They also played music, but after a while, they started speaking in tongues, and I felt very uncomfortable. I didn't want to be involved in that, but I couldn't get up. Even though I was big and strong back then, I physically couldn't stand up from my chair. I've experienced a lot in my life, but at that moment, I was genuinely scared. So I cried out to Jehovah, and immediately I was released and I was able to get up and leave. This big man was now in a fetal position crying. And then I called my wife and asked her to bring me a Bible and some literature. I had to start studying again and draw close to Jehovah. The greatest challenge was prayer, to start communicating with Jehovah again after being so far away from him, doing all these bad things. You know, it was a long way to go. One scripture I especially remember is Isaiah 1:18, where he says, "Come now, let us set matters straight between us." That touched me deeply. He also says that if your sins are red like scarlet, Jehovah will make them white as snow. It felt like he separated the darkness and stretched out his hand and pulled me out back into the light again. Six months after I was reinstated, my wife decided to dedicate her life to Jehovah and was baptized. She has been a huge support during my return. I was very nervous at first, but when I entered the Kingdom Hall, that feeling just disappeared. God's Spirit is here. The way the brothers and sisters acted towards each other was such a contrast to my former lifestyle. We feel deeply blessed by Jehovah. Of course, you make mistakes once in a while, but now I feel confident that Jehovah is merciful.
At his lowest point, Peter said he felt so far away from Jehovah. If you can relate to his situation in some way, be assured that you too can set matters straight. You can experience what Peter did, Jehovah helping him out of the darkness into the light again. Remember, Jehovah is saying to you and to all of us, I see your potential. You have what it takes. Today, some of the greatest challenges are faced by our young people. This month's music video was made especially for them. It's entitled, Fight the Fine Fight of the Faith.
Some days I feel I've had enough. The war in my mind can get so tough. There's days I feel there's no way out. In a flood of tears I'm sinking down. In my despair he sees me through. I know just what to do. I need his words of truth. I can hear Jehovah saying, ooh, just a little while longer. And ooh, and I will wipe out every tear. Ooh, just a little while longer. The new world is in sight. Just keep on holding. I'll help you win this fight, fight. I'll help you win this fight. Ooh, reading his word gives me the power. When storms in life come, he's my strong tower. In my despair, he pulls me through. When I am down, I know just what to do. I need his words of truth. I can hear Jehovah saying, ooh, just a little while longer. this fight.
What a beautiful song, and a beautiful reminder. Jehovah does help us to win our fight of the faith. In what ways? As we saw in the video, He helps us through our family and fellow worshipers, through the ministry, and through His Word, the Bible. Preserving God's Word and His personal name has been a fierce fight over many centuries, a fight that's being won. This is the subject of the Bible Museum at World Headquarters in Warwick, New York. Let's take a brief tour.
The Bible is a modern-day treasure. It reveals the satisfying truth about God, life, and our hope for the future. What's more, it contains another priceless treasure, God's personal name, Jehovah. How Jehovah preserved His name in the Holy Scriptures against all attempts to remove it is a fascinating story. And it's told here in the Bible Museum at World Headquarters in Warwick. Let's take the tour. At the museum's entry, the divine name is shown in various languages a total of 7,216 times. That's how many times it appears in the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures. Jehovah always made His name known, even to the very first humans. When Cain was born, Eve declared, "I have produced a male child with the help of Jehovah." After that time, people knew and used God's name. The oldest example of the divine name in Hebrew letters is on the Moabite stone from the 9th century BCE. Moabite King Mesha boasted against Israel, "I took from it the vessels of Jehovah and offered them before Chemosh." There's also evidence that in ancient times, God's name was used in everyday life. This silver scroll from the 7th century BCE is the earliest known inscription of a Bible text containing God's name. It reads, "May Jehovah bless you and keep you. May Jehovah make His face shine on you." Most important, God's name was in ancient copies of the Bible text. The Fuad Papyrus from the 1st century BCE is a fragment of the Greek Septuagint, the first known translation of the Hebrew Scriptures into Greek. Here's Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 3. "For I will declare the name of Jehovah." Although the text is in Greek, the divine name is written in Hebrew. Greek-speaking Jews in Jesus' day used the Septuagint. So when Jesus read and taught from the Scriptures, people heard Him use the divine name. Sadly, though, by the 3rd century CE, God's name was removed from the Septuagint and replaced with the title Lord. As an example, the Vatican Codex from the 4th century CE includes the text of the Greek Septuagint but omits God's name. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 3 here reads, "For I will declare the name of the Lord." But Jehovah wouldn't allow His name to be lost. It was never removed from Hebrew copies of the Bible. The Aleppo Codex was copied by Jewish scribes around the year 930 CE. The same verse, Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 3, says in Hebrew, "For I will declare the name of Jehovah." Still, for centuries, most people didn't have a Bible in their own language, nor one that contained God's name. The Latin Vulgate, translated around 405 CE, omitted the divine name. It became the official translation of the Catholic Church for over 1,000 years. But a new technology triggered events that would soon make the Bible widely available and in fresh translations that return God's name to its rightful place. About 1453, Johannes Gutenberg produced an important edition of the Latin Vulgate. It was the first Bible printed using movable type. This is an original page from a Gutenberg Bible. While only some 180 Bibles were made, his invention sparked a printing revolution. Just 20 years later, Anton Koberger was printing up to 1,000 Bibles per run, making it the first mass-produced Bible. On display is an original copy of the second edition of Koberger's Latin Bible from 1477. Then, in the early 1500s, Bible scholars took a renewed interest in the original Bible languages. For the very first time, the original language Hebrew and Greek scriptures were printed together. This is the Complutensian Polyglot, printed between 1514 and 1517. A polyglot is a book with text in several languages arranged in columns. In the Complutensian Polyglot, the Bible text appears in Latin, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Comparing the Hebrew text with the Latin, scholars could see where God's name had been replaced in the Latin Vulgate with Lord. But would seeing the divine name in the original Hebrew text lead Bible translators to restore God's name in their translations? Indeed, some did. In 1551, Sebastian Castellio published his fresh Latin translation of the Bible. He appears to be the first to use God's name consistently in a Latin translation of the Hebrew Scriptures. Translations into other languages were also using God's name. In 1530, William Tyndale published his English translation of Genesis through Deuteronomy. It was the first time the divine name appeared in any English Bible. The popular Reina Valera Spanish Bible was published in 1602. It contains the divine name throughout the Hebrew Scriptures. This is a rare original first edition of the English King James Version of the Bible, published in 1611. It uses the name Jehovah in just 4 passages. Still, the King James Version became the most widely printed book in the world. Some 200 years later, Benjamin Boothroyd, a minister and Hebrew scholar, set out to revise the King James Version. His 1817 translation was the first English Bible to use the divine name throughout the Hebrew Scriptures. Meanwhile, church missionaries were taking the Bible to new lands, but without the divine name, people couldn't distinguish the God of the Bible from their own false gods. So Bible translations in many languages of Asia, Africa, the Pacific Islands, and the Americas included God's name. The Chinese Delegates version from 1854 is an example of a missionary Bible that uses God's name throughout the Hebrew Scriptures. Still, there was one more place where God's name was not yet restored: the Christian Greek Scriptures. This is the Nuremberg Polyglot, published by Elias Hutter in 1599. It contains the Christian Greek Scriptures in 12 languages, including Hebrew. Here, John's Gospel quotes Psalm 118, verse 26, "Blessed is the one who comes in Jehovah's name." In his Hebrew translation of the Gospel, Hutter preserved the divine name in the quotation from Psalms. He did this in many other places in the Greek Scriptures. Translators had a precedent to use God's name in the Christian Greek Scriptures where the name appeared in verses quoted from the Hebrew Scriptures. This is the 1864 6th edition New Testament translation by Hermann Heinfetter. It's likely the first published English Bible to use God's name in more than 100 places in the Christian Greek scriptures. The New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures was first published between 1950 and 1960. Its translators benefited from the scholarly work of those before them who had chosen to preserve God's name in their Bible translations. Today, the New World Translation is available in whole or in part in over 170 languages. God's name, Jehovah, belongs in the Holy Scriptures he inspired. This gallery holds just a small part of the overwhelming evidence to this fact. The Bible is a precious gift from God, teaching us about his works, his qualities, and his loving purpose for humankind. He invites each of us to read it, to draw close to him, and to know him by his most holy name, Jehovah.
Our program has focused on perfecting holiness in God's fear. Perfecting holiness may sound out of reach, but remember, it's a continuous process. We saw this with those young men in Italy who left behind their violent and immoral ways. And with Jane, Yuska, and Yutaka, we saw experienced Christians who found ways to grow as spiritual people. We learned how to make our speech more upbuilding by examining our motives and associations. Peter Heinrich's experience demonstrates that it's possible to return to Jehovah with his help. Finally, our music video reminds us that despite the unique pressures our young people face, they're winning the fight. We close with a visit to our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico. Secluded beaches, lush valleys, mountains. This beautiful island is home to more than 3 million inhabitants and nearly 24,000 Jehovah's Witnesses. But its location in the Caribbean puts Puerto Rico in the path of tropical storms and hurricanes. One of the most powerful ever, Hurricane Maria, struck 2 years ago. Lives were lost and homes were destroyed. The entire island lost electricity for months. To help with relief efforts, thousands of brothers and sisters from Puerto Rico and from across the United States branch territory volunteered. They repaired and rebuilt 106 kingdom halls, 2 assembly halls, and more than 800 homes of our brothers. The Barahona congregation, located in the middle of the island, was enjoying their circuit overseer visit when the hurricane hit. The body of elders and the circuit overseer immediately organized and reached out to everyone in the congregation. Despite the devastation, the Sunday meeting took place as scheduled. In fact, despite dealing with challenging conditions for many months, the congregation didn't cancel a single meeting. Within a few days of Hurricane Maria, the organized preaching work resumed, and our brothers were back in the field. The response has been encouraging. 50 Bible studies are now being conducted. The 117 publishers in the Barahona congregation send you their warm Christian love and greetings. From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.